Hello, everyone. Welcome to Job Prep 101 for the Back to School Boot Camp presented by the Juliette Hampton Morgan Memorial Library. This first segment, we are going to talk about creating resumes. My name is Andrew Foster. I'm a reference librarian here at the Juliette Hampton Morgan Memorial Library.
My name is Brenda Davis. I'm also a reference librarian here at Juliette Hampton Morgan Library.
So today we're going to talk about resumes. Resumes are a very important part of getting a job. Whenever you apply for a job, a resume is going to be your impression that you're able to give a company. Some companies get tens, hundreds, thousands of resumes for positions, and so it's not feasible for those people who are doing the hiring to weed through and talk to and get in contact with every single person who's applying for that job, because there's only so many hours in the day and it's just impossible for them to be able to do that. So a resume is your way of essentially getting through the door, getting your foot in, and making sure that you are recognizable enough to that company that you can secure an interview so that you can impress them with, all the charisma that you've got. If your resume is lousy but you are a very charismatic person, you may never get a job. If your resume is good, you can at least get to that next step, which is what our goal for this one is. So we're going to cover a number of do's and don'ts for resumes. These are a list of at least some of the very, very basic things that we think will help your resume to at least get through the door. It doesn't have to be a crazy impressive resume. It doesn't have to be super artistic. It can be very plain, basic, and still get you into the door, and that's what we're aiming for this. So our first do is to include accurate, reliable contact information. You've got your first name and your last name. You want to give your street address where you live, where you can be contacted, any phone numbers that are associated with you, and an email. Email is one of the big ways of contacting people in the current age. So make sure that information is there, present on your resume. Generally, that is going to go top middle of your resume so that as soon as somebody picks up your resume, they know who they are looking at, and make sure that your information is completely accurate. If somebody looks at your resume and everything looks great, but the name, the phone number, or the email are wrong, then they're not going to be able to contact you to offer you that interview, which is a tragedy, because if everything else looks great, then you may deserve that job.
List any relevant skills you have, especially if you are lacking in experience.
So this can include a number of things. This can include being able to speak in other languages. This can include experience with, helping and serving food. This can include experience with working with kids. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, niche, or out there. Just list what you can do so that the person who's reading the resume knows what you can do. Because they may have never met you. They may not know who you are. Even if they've met you, they may not remember who you are just based on a name. And so listing what you can do is a good way to share that information of what you can do so that they know what you are worth. List any experience you can, including prior jobs, volunteer experience, and school club activities. These may seem like they're unimportant or even irrelevant to the job you've got, but especially if you've not had other jobs, these actually are very important. Listing things like volunteer experience and school clubs and activities show that you as a person are able to commit to something, and that you're able to follow a schedule, that you're able to work with a group. They seem like small things, but especially in comparison, if somebody is not listing these types of things, it is going to be a mark in your favor as compared to somebody who leaves everything blank. So list whatever you can. It doesn't have to be famous. It doesn't have to be glamorous. It doesn't have to be anything incredible. You don't have to be an all-American athlete. If it's participated in community soccer for 8 years, that's what it is. And it does show that you have done other things that do have applicable skills to what you're looking to do.
Don't let your personality shine through in unprofessional ways. Let it shine through in good ways, not unprofessional, not any other kind of way. Be professional in everything you do.
So, yeah, it is important to let yourself shine through whenever you are looking for a job, but throwing in something under your resume just because you think it's a cool picture or anything like that, throwing in information that your former employer just doesn't need to know, throwing in, silly pictures, it's funny, it may be hilarious. It's not going to get you that job. That's one of those things that is going to cause them to just throw away your resume immediately. So do not do this. Just make sure that everything that you format for your resume looks professional, because that is what these employers are looking for, because they are professionals. Don't leave in spelling, grammar, or formatting mistakes. This is probably the most common mistake that people make when giving resumes to employers. And it can be something small, it can be something big, it can be something huge. But if you hand a resume to an employer, please make sure that you have single, double, and triple checked it to make sure it looks fine. Resumes do take time to do, and they're a pain to do at times. But rushing the process is probably going to mean that it's going to be prolonged. If you take your time, make sure your resume looks neat, clean, and orderly. It could get you a job on the first try rather than on the fifth. So make sure that all the resume information that you put on there is single, double, triple checked for accuracy, so that there's no spelling, grammar, or formatting mistakes.
Don't lie on your resume. It is important to be absolutely honest. When you're doing your resume, make sure you perform it and you draw it up correctly and with no lies, trying to elaborate or get a job that you know that you do not have experience doing. Do not lie.
And this is very, very important, because if you do lie on a resume and your employer, if you get hired, discovers that you lied on it, that is, in pretty much every job I can think of,
Right.
grounds for you to be fired immediately.
It is.
So that's not only going to cause you to get fired from the job that you maybe didn't need to lie to get, but it's also going to put a black mark on your record that if you're trying to get hired for a job after that, that information is out there that you have lied about your experience, about your resume, which is going to cause getting a job in the future after you've done this to be even harder in the first place. So don't lie. It is absolutely not worth it. Resume creation is a very, very simple process. It can be time consuming, and it can take effort to do, especially to do well. And we're going to give one more recommendation as we kind of finish up our talk about resumes today. And this is just a recommendation on how to create your resume. Once we've gone through this, we're actually going to have one of our librarians, Miss LaRuth Martin, who manages the computer lab here at the Juliette Hampton Morgan Memorial Library, is going to give a tutorial on how to create your resume. For it, we recommend Microsoft Word if you have access to it. If you do not have access to it, there are a number of other free alternatives that you can use instead. But just a basic word processor is what we are going to recommend for creating your resume. What we don't recommend are free resume builders online. These are the ones that you find whenever you just hop onto Google and you type resume or resume builder or resume maker, even if you put in the word free. And there's one very, very good reason, and this is a reason that we come across all the time. One of the big things we do at the reference desk is we do have people who ask us questions, including how to make a resume. And they will come in and they won't ask us this, and they'll go to these websites and they'll start using it, and they'll take 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, multiple hours creating their resume, trying to go through as quickly as they can, and they just don't have typing speed, or they just are trying to get all the information together, and they get to the end of this process and they hit go and they see the resume and it looks very nice, and then the website says,
you owe us money, lots of money. It is not free. And they're trying to print it, and they can't print it because before you can print it, you're going to put in a credit card number, or you're going to have to do something to release that resume. So please avoid these websites.
Nearly all the free resume builder websites, I don't know of any that are not this way, will try and charge you if you use them to create your resume. And if you have the money to spend on a resume, they're great. They are super useful. They format your resume in a way that looks very nice to look at, and they do make it look nice, but they are not going to be free.
No.
So do keep that in mind. And if you are looking for a free alternative, once again, our recommendation is either through Word or a free alternative to Word. I believe that's everything we've got today on resumes. Hopefully we had some information that will be useful to you in helping you get a job in the future. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at the Juliette Hampton Morgan Memorial Library up at the reference desk, and we'll be happy to answer for you.
Hi, my name is LaRuth Martin, and I'm the Computer Lab Manager at the Juliette Hampton Morgan Memorial Library. My assistant Shin Young will be doing the typing as we discuss how to use the resume template in Microsoft Word. We will begin by opening Microsoft Word. Your first window that opens will be a display of the featured templates. We're going to click in the search bar and type minimalist resume. Why are we selecting this? Because your first resume should be as simple as possible. We will now select a resume and click Create. Before we begin our resume, we're going to delete some of the cells within this resume because they won't be needed for our first resume. We are now ready to begin. Let's click on your name and you'll type your first and last name. Next, we will type our street address, city, state, and zip code. We will now type in an available phone number where your potential employer can reach you. Next will be your email. It should be a variation of your first and last name. It should be professional. Our adjective is next. What is an adjective? It is a statement describing the position you are applying for. We are now ready to begin our experience. Your experience should be anything that relates to the position. It can be volunteer work, done at church, school, or your neighborhood, your community. Some examples may be assistance in the office, school office, or at your church. You could mow lawns or babysitting. All of this can be used as experience because it will be relevant to that particular position. Next is education. You're going to list your high school, your date of graduation, if you've graduated. If you've not, you can put coursework that you've done that may be relevant to the position that you're applying for. Next are references. What references can you place? You can use your pastor of your church, maybe administrators at your school, or community leaders. Once you finish this section, please proofread your work. Good luck with your job endeavors.
All right, welcome to Job Prep 102. This one is going to cover interview attire. Once again, I am Andrew Foster.
And I'm Brenda Davis.
And we're going to talk today in this session about what to wear once you've secured your interview. Interview attire is a very important way to give an impression to your employer before you speak, before you are able to do anything else. This is going to help set the first impression that your potential employer is going to have for you. So it's very important to dress correctly for what you're doing. We're going to try for this to dress to impress is what we're aiming for. You want to look nice, you want to look clean, you want to look put together so that the person that is interviewing you can look at you and say, okay, I could see putting that person in charge of something, or I trust that person enough that I want to have them in my store or my business, or whatever it is.
Whatever.
You want to set a good enough impression with your potential employer that they're going to want to give you money to do work, versus the impression where they go, ooh, that person's gross, I don't want them anywhere near me. So for this, we're going to try and talk over a few points on how to dress to impress. First of all, we're going to start from the top and work our way down for the most part. Hair and makeup for everybody. If you go into an interview, neatly comb and style your hair. It doesn't matter what your default hairstyle is. If it's wild on regular days, that's totally fine. We don't care. But if you're going into an interview, make order out of the chaos that may be your hair. Comb it, style it, keep it out of your face, and don't play with it. Your hair is not a toy. If it is a nervous habit, find some way to get it away from where you're going to play with it, whether that's through a ponytail, a clip, hairpins. It doesn't matter how, but keep it out of your face and don't play with it, because that does not look good in an interview. For men, if you have facial hair, that is totally fine. But for men, either facial hair should be clean shaven or neatly trimmed. You want to leave a good impression with the employer. You don't want to look homeless.
All right, for women's we have, if you wear makeup, please apply it neatly. Don't come in there with your makeup all over the place.
For shoes and accessories, wear closed-toed shoes that are comfortable, clean, and in good repair if possible. Make sure that, if you're feeling pain from wearing shoes, it's going to show in your interview. If your shoes are dirty, it's going to show. And sometimes that's unavoidable. If it's raining when you go in for your interview, they may get muddy. And that's all right. If you have a chance to stop by a restroom and clean them up after that, that is a good idea, because, whenever your employer sees you, they're going to take in the whole package, including shoes.
Bags. Bags and purses should be small and structured. Big, floppy, or messy can make bad impressions. Please come in there with a nicely neat purse, or handbag, or bag, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. And accessories, if you wear jewelry or if you wear watches, that is totally fine. Just avoid things that are overly distracting or overly noisy. If you move around a little bit, it shouldn't sound like somebody went into a china store. So don't wear things that are overly noisy. Don't wear things that are overly distracting. Your outfit is there to frame you. You are not there to frame your outfit. That's not what people are hiring. And if you have accessories, such as headphones, sunglasses, or, for an interview, a phone, leave it in your vehicle. Do not take it in. Do not have headphones around your neck. Do not have sunglasses on top of your head. Do not have a phone in your pocket, because A, that leaves a bad impression for the visible accessories, and B, if you have a phone call in the middle of your interview, that is going to distract you. It's going to cause you to lose focus on what you're doing, and it's going to affect your performance in the interview. So leave all those types of things in your car.
Clothing. Dress nice for your interview. The general rule of thumb is to dress one level above the typical daily dress of your job you're applying for.
For dressing nicely, this does include not wearing wrinkled or ill-fitting clothing. Make sure your stuff fits. make sure it's clean pressed. If you have an iron, use it before the thing. If not, you can take a tennis ball or a number of other things and throw it in your dryer for a few minutes to help get the wrinkles out. Also, make sure that your undergarments and your skin do not show with your interview outfit. If you're in short sleeves, that's fine. A little bit of arm is fine, but we should not be seeing overly other areas that should be covered by your clothing because they're ill-fitting or just worn messily. Make sure those do not show. For men, if you own a suit, use it. For any interview, a suit is more than appropriate. It doesn't matter if you are interviewing to be a lawyer or if you're interviewing to work down at Walmart. If you've got an interview and you wear a suit, you are not going to be ill-dressed for that interview. If you don't own a suit, you can get away dressing like I'm currently dressed right now with a pair of pressed slacks, a button-down shirt, and a tie. That is totally acceptable attire for an interview.
Women's, if you own a suit, use it. If you do not own a suit, wear a dress like you're going to church, dressed and pressed. Wear a dress, a skirt, a slacks, a neat blouse, and if you would like to add color, a neat tie or scarf would complete the ensemble.
One last thing, and this is important. This is something that I cannot stress enough. If you are going to an interview, do not wear a t-shirt and blue jeans. It doesn't matter where you're applying for, unless you are just unexpectedly applying for a job because that person wants to hire you on the spot. Don't wear a t-shirt and blue jeans. They are not going to impress, and wearing that to the interview shows that you don't care enough to dress up for the interview, which is not going to impress your prospective employer. So do not wear those things for the interview. That was part 2. We're going to have a couple of bonus features on this video to kind of help preparation and dress for your interview. We're going to go over how to tie a tie for those of you who need to wear a tie for an interview and just don't know how to tie it. And we're also going to have a special survival kit that we're going to show you what to put into so that when you show up for an interview, if something small goes wrong, you'll be ready to fix it. Thank you. Ties are one of the most common accessories in today's world. Today we're going to go through the steps of how to tie a tie so that you will be ready if you ever need to wear one. I've got a tie here with me. On any given tie, there's going to be a skinny end and a fat end. As you take the tie and you place it around your neck, for our purposes today, we are going to put the fat end of the tie on the right-hand side and the skinny side on the left. Whenever you're wearing a tie, to make sure it's going to be the right length, for most people, you're going to put the tie on the short end right around your belly button. That's going to make sure it's the right length. I myself am very tall. I stand 6'8", so I do have to make some adjustments when I tie ties for myself. And if you are a taller individual, I usually put the short end of the tie right around the breast pocket at the very bottom of it. That way it is a little bit longer for me whenever I am wearing a tie. After you've got the tie around your neck, the first step as you take the two pieces of your tie is going to be to take the short and just put it against your chest so it's easy to go around. And you're going to take the fat end of the tie, the long end, and you're going to just cross it over. Once you've done that, you're going to take your left hand and you're going to place your thumb right at the cross between the two pieces of tie. It is very important you do this. It does make a lot of steps in the future a lot easier. And as you do it, you're going to leave that hand there until nearly the end of this process. So place your thumb, your left thumb, on the cross between the two pieces. And then with your right hand, you're going to take the fat end of the tie and put it all the way around a whole 360 degrees until it is all the way around. This is going to cover your left thumb. This is what we want. You want your left thumb to be covered. And as you wrap it around, be careful and make sure that as you wrap it around, you do keep the fabric straight. You don't let it twist or turn or anything like that. If the fabric is twisting or turning, your tie is going to end up looking wrong whenever you finish it. You may have parts of the knot on the outside rather than inside where they're supposed to go, and you're going to need to redo your tie after that because it's not going to look put together or professional. Once you've gone all the way around 360 degrees, our next step is going to be to take the tie, and once again making sure you stay consistent with your direction, you're going to tuck the tie between your neck and the rest of the fabric of the tie. And as you pull that all the way through, you want to make sure that the front facing section of the tie is on the outside rather than the bottom of the section of the tie where there is obvious sewing. There are going to be clips or holders, there's going to be tags. That is the section you want on the underside of the tie closest to your chest and stomach. Once you've pulled it all the way through, our next step is going to involve this left thumb that you left tucked in. You're going to take the fabric of the tie and you're going to tuck it through the section where that left thumb is. All the way through, pulling it through, and then pulling it tight. This is pulled tight just by tugging once again on the long end, the fat end of the tie. Once you've done that, pull your tie tight to however tightness you want it on the neck. It should hang ideally about to your belt buckle or the waistline of your pants if you're not wearing a belt. And then fix your collar as needed. That's our tutorial on how to tie a tie. Hopefully this information is going to be helpful to people as they look to get jobs, look to wear ties, and as you grow and need to wear these sorts of accessories. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Hi everybody, my name is Suzanne Hort and I'm head of the reference department here at the Juliette Hampton Morgan Memorial Library. And what I want to do today is share some tips with you, specifically sharing my Susie Survival Kit for interviews. And this is something, a group of things that I carry along with me to interviews to prepare prior to the interview, and also during the interview things may come up that some of these items may come in handy. My first tip is, of course, to bring a notebook and a functioning pen. You want to make sure that your pen is working because I don't know how many times I've opened a pen and started writing and it's just dead. So double check that your pen is working, or bring two just in case. The notebook, of course, is pretty self-explanatory, but it's for you to write down any questions or things that you want to bring up in your interview and you may be nervous and forget. So you want to make sure that you make notes of those. Also, during the interview, if things come up and you want to ask them and you don't want to necessarily interrupt the interview to ask the question, may just, have it written down so that you can come back to it later. Always ask questions. It just looks good on you. It shows that you're interested in the position and curious about the position. Another thing that I always bring, and this might just be because I'm a bookworm, is a book to read. Because what you don't want to do is sit there, even in a neutral space where you're waiting for your interview to begin, playing on your phone. It just doesn't look professional. Of course, if there's an emergency phone call or something like that, it's fine. But, just take deep breaths, sit there and don't do anything, or read a book. Especially if you're interviewing at a library. If librarians see you reading a book, it's going to show that you're very interested in the topic at hand, in books and reading in general, and they're going to ask about it. What are you reading? Do you like it? Have you read this? It's going to foster a conversation, which is always a good impression to make on your interviewers. Of course, you want to bring some water with you. I would suggest water and not coffee, tea, or juice, or sodas, or anything like that, because it is neutral. Because if you spill this or dribble it down your mouth, you're not going to stain your clothing. If you have cotton mouth when you're nervous, or if just get the tickles in your throat, or you may be feeling kind of under the weather if you have sinus issues, have some water with you because it will keep you from coughing and carrying on and just making the whole thing awkward. And then this is a cosmetics bag basically that I have that just happens to fit all of the things for my kit. If you are uncomfortable carrying a cosmetics bag, of course you can carry whatever alternative you want. You're probably not going to carry this into the interview, so it'll stay in your car or in a larger bag. So just whatever you feel comfortable. But these are just items that I feel like make the process smoother and help you in the event of emergency situations. I would suggest, without a doubt, a Tide pen or these stain removing wipes if you choose to eat before your interview, and I would suggest that just for blood sugar reasons and things like that. Also, you don't want your stomach growling really loudly in the middle of an interview. You may be the cleanest eater on the planet, but that day your hamburger is going to squirt mustard down your face. So keep these, have them on hand, just in life in general, but especially on an interview day. The Tide pen is really good for, it can scrub surfaces. This is more of like a wipe solution. Both are good. I would definitely consider having these on hand. As I said, I do suggest that you eat something prior to the interview. If your interview's in the morning, eat breakfast. If it's in the afternoon, do it after, or eat lunch before. But always also bring a healthy snack. I don't mean candy or a Snickers. I mean, anything's better than nothing, but something that won't cause your blood sugar to just kind of go crazy. Because if you're already nervous and your blood sugars are here and there and you don't even have to have blood sugar issues or diabetes, just be careful. Have some fruit. This is a protein breakfast bar. So it's like natural proteins, nuts and things like that. Just something just in case you start to feel a little weak and you want a little pick-me-up. Cottonelle wipes are always great, or any kind of wipe like this. It doesn't have to be Cottonelle. These are good in the bathroom, but these are good in any circumstance on the body. It's perfectly fine to use this if you spilled something sticky on your arm or anything like that. They're good to have on hand. These are a lot of things that most ladies that carry purses are just like, yeah, it's kind of common knowledge for them to carry this kind of stuff. For men, not as much to carry this kind of stuff, but it is useful to think ahead and to think about the situations that may come up, because you want your focus to be on the interview and your questions and how you're presenting yourself. You don't want to worry about, do they see the mustard stain on my shirt? I would suggest some gum or breath mints. Of course, you want to spit out the gum before the interview. You don't want to be chewing through some gum as you're answering questions. Whatever you like, just, for breath control, especially if you've had the snack or lunch beforehand. I have pets. Even if you don't have pets, you may have some dandruff issues or something like that. So I would always carry a lint roller with me, especially if you're going to be wearing darker colors. It's just handy to have on hand. These little packs of tissues are very useful for various applications. Just good to have them on hand. Chapstick, lip balm, something like that, something to moisten your lips if you're going to be talking a lot. If your lips are chapped, well, first of all, it doesn't look so great, but also they could crack and bleed, and it just would not be good impression to set for the interview. So make sure you bring something to keep your lips moist, because hopefully you're going to be talking a lot and they're going to be asking you questions and you're going to be responding. So you want your lips to be capable of movement without flaking off, as pleasant as that sounds. A lot of people use these. You can't really see them from this far back. These are the little flossers with the toothpick on the end, just in case, back to that whole eating beforehand thing, just to make sure your mouth, if you don't have a piece of corn in between your teeth as you're talking, just not a good impression to leave. As far as grooming goes, I would suggest a hairbrush or a comb or a pick, whatever it is that you use on your hair, just in case you need to refresh your hair or something beforehand. To keep it pinned safely, but safety pins are always useful to have on hand if you have a wardrobe malfunction. You got to keep your fly up on your pants, or you lose a button. Any number of things could happen, and it's good to have some safety pins on hand. This particular bag came with a little mirror, which is really useful, but a little handheld mirror, like a compact, something like that. Yes, guys, this does go for you too, because you want to make sure that your hair is looking okay. This is not just for the ladies. Especially if you may or may not be driving to the interview, but you don't have a rear view to look in, once you're in the interview location, or if somebody is dropping you off and they don't have a public restroom, something like that, have a little mirror with you. Here are a couple of additional things that's brought up by some coworkers. If you, ladies, if you choose to wear pantyhose. Bring an extra pair of pantyhose with you because you could have runs or tears or anything like that come up. So try to have an extra pair with you just in case. Of course, you can use clear nail polish if you do get a run and you don't have a backup pair. So maybe some clear nail polish in here would be useful. And then if you choose to wear makeup, just bring backups of whatever that is, your foundation, your lipstick. The cotton wipes would be useful if, say, like you start to run with your eyeshadow or your mascara, you can clean it up and reapply, something like that. And that's basically it. This is not gonna guarantee that your interview is successful, but it should hopefully make you comfortable leading up to the process and during the process to know that you've done everything you can do to make yourself presentable and appealing to the interview panel. So I hope you have found this information useful, and I wish you luck at your next interview. Thank you.
Welcome to part 3 of our Job Prep 101 series. This is Job Prep 103, Interview Skills. For this one, we are going to talk about not preparing beforehand with how you dress, not preparing to get the interview by making your resume, but we're going to talk about things that directly relate, in this one, to the interview itself once you've gone through. Once again, I'm Andrew Foster.
And I'm Brenda Davis.
And hopefully this is going to be information that will help you snag a job so that you can get paid and buy stuff. Preparation is very, very so important for getting a job. And especially in the interview stage, preparation is what is going to help in some ways separate you from other people, especially if you are not a talker. Preparation may be the way that you get the job. So first thing we're going to talk about is preparing physically for your interview. Not necessarily by doing push-ups or sit-ups or anything else so you look super buff, but we are going to give you some handy tips to make sure that you are aware, alert, ready for your interview physically. Before you go to your interview, make sure you get plenty of rest the night before. That is super important. If you are tired, you're going to seem tired. And so rest up, make sure you've got plenty of energy when you wake in the morning so that you can impress with your interview. Before you go inside, check for any wardrobe malfunctions. Make sure you don't have a fly down. Make sure your underpants aren't showing. Make sure you don't have buttons unfastened. Make sure everything in your wardrobe is a-okay, because nothing is worse than showing up to an interview and then realizing your pants had a big old split in the back of them. So don't do that. Make sure you are good to go for your interview. Check your breath. If something smells off, make sure you have either a toothbrush or something to freshen your breath on hand. If you watched Miss Susie's survival guide, you'll already have something prepared for that. So have something ready in case your breath is bad. And make sure you have everything you need for the interview in hand. That includes a resume, because resumes may have gotten lost. You want to make sure that they have that experience in front of them so they can look at what you can do and offer for the company. And any other interviews, if you've got interviews for something a little bit more in depth, you may have physical models, you may have a small packet of papers. My wife, whenever she does an interview, comes in with a whole folder full of stuff that shows what she's capable of. And having those in hand and ready, not only is good because you have them in hand and you're ready to go, but it also can impress your potential employer. Because if you've brought a whole packet that's this thick of stuff you've done that's good quality stuff, and the other person applying for the job is not, that's definitely giving you a leg up on the competition.
Be prepared mentally. Okay, aim to arrive early so you will not be flustered when you begin your interview. Now, what helps me is I take a little time out for meditation. I go to a quiet room rather in my house or in the car and just sit there for a little while and just concentrate on good things. Make myself feel good. And when I go into the interview, I am prepared mentally and physically for whatever they might throw at me. Do your research. Take some time before the interview to learn something about the company. Be prepared. If they ask you questions, how can you take this company forward, or what can you do for this company? You know what the company is about and that way for you'll be able to answer the questions honestly and let them know what you can offer for that company. Prepare questions about the company that is just, how much does this job pay? Or, will I get the weekends off? Use your question to show expertise or interest in the company. Let them know that you're truly interested in the job. That helps a lot.
All right, next we're going to talk about interview behavior. You've prepared beforehand, you're in the interview. Here's how you should behave.
Manners matters. Greet the employee with a firm handshake and an introduction. Watch your wording. Avoid colorful or casual language during your interview. Eyes on the prize. Make eye contact with the interview. Make sure that you look at him in his face or her in her face. Let them know that you are paying attention and that you're interested. Do not be looking away. Speak loudly and clearly so the interviewer can hear and understand without strain.
Also, when you're in the interview, take an active attitude. If you have to, fake it till you make it. Not everybody's normal is to be outgoing, friendly, smiley. But if you're in an interview, your job is to impress that person. If you go into an interview and you slump in your chair
Yeah, like
and you cross your arms and you look away from the person, you're not going to impress them.
No.
Sit up in your chair, plant your feet firmly on the floor. If you need to either put your hands together or twiddle your thumbs or whatever you need to do, fake it, be outgoing and friendly, smile, be friendly to make a good impression on the person that's interviewing you. Another important thing for attitude is to know yourself. As you're applying for a job, as you're going into the interview, and as you're hearing about the position itself, try and think about yourself. Are you a people person? Are you an introvert? Do people exhaust you? Do people give you energy? It is entirely possible to be an extrovert in a quiet job or an introvert who works in sales. The important thing is knowing what you can do and what you are willing to do so that if you apply for a job and get offered the job and accept it, you're not going to be uncomfortable in your job. As much as money is nice, as fantastic as it makes the world go round, if you're unhappy in your job, that's going to affect you and it's going to affect the rest of your life. So making sure you're comfortable with the job you're applying for is an important part of getting a job. And finally, open honesty in this. If you have any restrictions, it doesn't matter what they are. This might include inflexible scheduling. If either you've got something going on in your life that is important to you that you are not willing to compromise on. This could include work. This could include some sort of family time. This could include that you just, for whatever reason, don't work Tuesdays. If you've got allergies, if you've got religious restrictions, if there's anything about yourself that is a restriction that is not able to be compromised or does need to be communicate it. It is not necessarily going to cost you a job. And even if it does, it's not worth trying to hide or lie about to the point that if you do get offered the job, it becomes an issue. So in your interview, be open and honest about any of these things so that your potential employer can take them into account as they're deciding whether to hire you or not. If you are good in everything else and you have whatever restriction that is there and you're worth it, they're going to hire you anyways. And they're going to work around whatever restrictions you've told them because you've told them from the beginning that restriction is there. So be open and honest about it. There are a number of different questions that you can be asked in the interview. We're going to talk about a little bit on how to approach those questions as well.
Answer effectively. Make the most of the questions you are asked. Give examples. When answering interview questions, give examples from the situations you have been in when possible. Use detail. Give detail when answering questions. Answering with one word will not impress your potential boss. Plan ahead. Google job interview questions before your interview. and plan possible answers ahead of the time.
So we've got a number of possible questions here on the screen if you want to take a moment to read them. And as you are asked these questions, or as you try and answer these questions, keep in mind what we said just a moment ago. Give detail, give specific answers, don't just answer yes. Why do you want to work for this company? I want to get paid. Not a good answer. Why do you want to work for this company? I've always wanted to work in a library. Libraries are somewhere I'm very comfortable with, and they're somewhere that, I grew up going to a public library. And so by doing that, I want to start giving back to my community the same way the public library gave to me as a part of the community. That's a much better answer than, I want to get paid. And it shows that you care about the company, and it shows that you care about where you're trying to get work. So all these questions, I pretty well just Googled job interview questions. These were just the ones that I selected out of there. But beforehand, Google those questions, take a moment to read them, take a moment to think about what you might be asked for the specific company you're applying for, and try and think of possible answers to those questions that aren't just yes or no's, but do talk about the company itself. If you can find information on the company that is relevant to an answer you're giving, then that's all the better for your chances in that interview. One last thing to remember as you are in that interview: it does not matter what job you apply for. When you have a job, you're agreeing to do the job that is offered to you, not the job you want to do. On so many job positions and job descriptions, there is one line at the very, very bottom of that job description that says, "and other duties as assigned," or some variation of that sentence. It doesn't matter what job you've got. When you agree to do a job, you agree to do the job that is asked of you by your supervisors or the people who are making the calls for you, not whatever you want to do. If you are asked to clean a bathroom, you don't just get to say, "Ew, no, that's gross. I don't like potties." If you're asked to clean a bathroom, you can clean a bathroom. I know people who I've worked with who've had to clean bathrooms. I've had supervisors I've worked under who've gone to clean the bathrooms. I've even seen, either principals, branch heads, CEOs, if the toilet's messed up, they're the one who fixes it, because it is not below you to do the job that you need to do. So whenever you apply for your job, do keep that in mind, because that is very, very important, that the job's not below you. Do the job that you have agreed to do whenever you're hired, not the job you want to do. So that's it for our Job Prep 101 series. Hopefully there was some useful information. For this video, we're going to have a little bit extra at the end, in which some of the people who do the job interviews here at the library are going to talk about what kind of things they look for in a job interview from the people they're interviewing. So tune in for that. We hope the information we gave you has been useful and will help you find a job. And thank you very much. All right, so we've got here a few of the people who do some of the interviewing here at the Montgomery City County Public Library System, specifically here at the Juliette Hampton Morgan Memorial Library. I've got Miss LaRuth Martin, who is the head of the computer lab, Miss Suzanne Horton, who is the head of reference, and the head librarian here at the Juliette Hampton Morgan Memorial Library, Miss Eloise Holmes. They're going to answer some questions for us today about the interviewing process, what kind of things they look for when they're talking to people, and what sort of things that they notice, what kind of behaviors, just to kind of give some insight behind that inscrutable face and that piece of paper that you don't know what's being written on, that can be so intimidating during the interview process. So we're going to start. Our first question is, what do you look for in an interview?
I'll start. I look for someone who is punctual. So being punctual and on time is very important. If you see where you're not going to be able to make your interview or be on time, you'll want to make sure that you let the interviewer know.
Yeah, for me, it's actually two things. One is that the interviewee has done their research, so they know about the organization that they're interviewing for. In the case of the library, of course, you know what the library is, you know what the library does. Perhaps you even have a library card. That's always more impressive than just showing up and not knowing anything. And then also excitement and passion. If they show up and they just look bored or something like that, you can tell. You can tell they're just sort of there going through the motions. Whereas if you have somebody who's just, you can tell they're just so excited to be there and they really want that job. It's impressive.
Okay, that's sort of like what I was going to say about having a positive attitude. When you come in, just show that you're, as Susan said, excited about what you're going for, and also having the knowledge on your resume. Have a resume, have it tuned and designed specifically for the job that you're applying for.
Okay. So on the other side of that, what serves as a red flag during an interview?
Well, for me, something that serves as a red flag is if I feel that the person is not being themselves, if I feel like the person is truly saying what we want to hear. If a question is asked about, are you available to work nights and weekends? And knowing that the library or a job, their times may be from 9 until 9. And so they're open 7 days a week. If someone is saying, well, yes, I think I'm going to be available, or yes, I'm available. I think things like that, it's a red flag for me. And so.
Yeah, and sort of kind of along in the vein of what Zelacruz said, if they lie, I mean, we're going to know pretty quickly that you're lying. And I know you're trying to impress the people that you're interviewing with, but it's all going to see the light of day. So if you claim to, for example, be excellent in the Dewey Decimal System, which is a system we use to shelve books, we're going to ask you a specific question, and it's going to become clear that you're just saying, what you think we want to hear.
Going back to the resume, having large gaps in your resume between jobs, or even having too many jobs. There is such a thing as having too many jobs. So that gives me a red flag as to why you're not staying on a position that long.
And if you do have that, explain that. Because
Yes,
early on in my career personally, my husband moved for jobs. So it looks like I'm bouncing from library to library, and it had nothing to do, it was the circumstances of my family, that we had to move around a lot. So whenever I do a cover letter or something like that, I always explain that.
All right. How often would you say that people, and this kind of came up earlier, come in unprepared for an interview?
Now, I haven't had many interviews where I felt someone came in unprepared. So I don't think it happens that often. And so in my personal times that I've done interviews, I haven't noticed it often. But I have noticed it a time or two, but not often.
I think with Ruth and I, when we interview, we tend to interview for the entry-level page position here at the library, and we do come across it fairly frequently, I think. Which is a shame. I am the one who calls people to set up interviews, and typically that's between 2 and 4 weeks before the actual interview date. And so that's lots of time to prepare, because we may not even know who you are visually, so you can, secret shopper, come in the library and check everything out. There's no excuse to not prepare.
I don't think I've run across it too much either. Perhaps maybe a nervousness when those applicants come in. They may have a little nervous problem, and they may forget perhaps what they've written down on their resume. They may have had a blank for a minute, but I'm not run across it too much. No.
Okay.
And about that, like with the nerves, that's not a red flag. Everybody's nervous about
that's
an
not a
interview.
red flag.
So if you're like in your head and you're nervous, it's perfectly fine. We know that,
Yes.
and hopefully, I can speak for the three of us. Our style of interview is not very formal and straight-laced, so we try to put people at ease
Yes.
and let them, express themselves and not be so nervous. But sometimes the nerves get the better of you. But we do know, we can tell, and it's fine. It happens to everybody.
All right. So this is becoming a little bit more common. So this was one we wanted to kind of talk about just briefly. Is there a difference for you guys and kind of how you perceive them between an in-person interview versus a remote interview, like through Skype, Zoom, by phone, any of those formats?
I can tell with remote interviews, especially like phone interviews, that I feel over the phone that the person is more comfortable with being themselves and being able to articulate better the things that they're trying to say when they're over the phone versus in person. And so I've had some very positive phone interviews. I haven't had many, if I have had any Skype interviews, but I've had a couple of phone interviews and they went very well.
Yeah, I've conducted one Skype interview, and I found that it was helpful because the person couldn't physically be here, but we were able to see them and see their body language and the way they thought about the questions as they were answering them and things like that. So I feel like the video interview or Skype interview, digital interview, however you want to say it, can be useful too. But you definitely want to make sure that your environment that you're in, it don't have a maybe an inappropriate poster on the wall behind you or something like that. But you also want to dress professionally, from your head to your toe. Don't wear your underwear and your dress shirt because you never know when you might have to stand up. So it'll help you hold yourself better. So if you're dressed to impress, you're gonna hold yourself differently than if you have sock feet and sweatpants underneath the table. And then the phone interview, I've only been interviewed for a phone, but again, like Zella Police was saying, it was a kind of a less pressure on that because it was more like just a conversation. But I like seeing people face to face too, not as far as judging them goes, but just to get a feel for their manners and stuff like that.
I've not had to do a Skype or a phone, but I would think with a Skype you would show that eye contact, regardless of if that person is in front of you or what. And whereas you would be a little bit more calmer doing a phone interview, but with that Skype, you have that person in front of you looking at you, but you can still relay that message of being a positive person, show eye contact, show that you are just motivated and excited.
Okay. Do you have any tips or tricks that you would recommend for someone going into an interview?
Well, when I have done interviews, I always, like Susie said, making sure that I'm prepared when I go in. And I go in and I'm myself. I don't try to be anyone else. If there are things that I don't know, I've always was very upfront and letting people know, like, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that, or I'm sorry, I've never done that. So my tip is to be yourself. You don't have to bring your best representative for it, but you're going to do your best. And don't try to be anyone else. So be yourself and just be very honest and open in your interview. Yeah. And I think that that's going to make for a more successful interview.
Right, and if you are yourself in the interview and you don't get a good vibe for the place or they don't like you, it wasn't meant to be anyway. It's not. So you don't want to put forth this inflated or fake version of yourself just to fit into the workplace culture, because this is potentially going to be your place of employment. So if your authentic self is not what they're looking for, or vice versa, you want to know that early.
Correct.
I have gone through with my son and pretended to be the interviewer, and he going on a job interview. So we have done a rehearsal, role rehearsal. So that may be something, if you have a friend or a relative, someone that can go through some questions with you, maybe put you at ease a little bit about going for that interview. Of course, now he's cool anyway, so it wasn't any problem for him. So, but maybe rehearse before you go on the actual interview might help you.
And if you don't have a person to do that with you, there's tons of websites and things like that with interview questions for the different industries and things like that. And then if you know somebody that works in that place or a similar place, you could ask them how their interview went, what kind of questions. So there's things you can do to not be completely cut off guard.
Okay, and for our final question, and this is one that is going to change from place to place, but just for here, what does the post-interview process look like?
But the post-interview process that I know of, if you receive the position, or even if you don't receive the position here, you're notified. If you don't receive the position, then you'll be notified that you did not receive the position at this time. And if there's a registry that is, set, then you're notified that you will remain on the register for, the 2 years with the city. Is how long that we're able to remain on the register. And so you'll, be told that, and then to wish you luck in any of your future endeavors, and of course to make sure that you understand that you can always, if the position comes open again, making sure that you reapply for that position and reapply with us. It's just if you're on the register, then you're on the register. If after 2 years you come off, then you'll want to make sure that you're back on the register again so that you reapply for the position.
Yeah, I know with us in particular, sometimes it's a quick process, but sometimes it's a slow process because it's interview panel, and then we sort of evaluate the various candidates, and then it gets passed up the chain to our administration, and then they make ultimate decisions. So it's not even our decision to make. So if those administrators are not here or have other things going on, it could sometimes take a while. So in this particular instance, you want to be patient. It's not going to be it might be within a week, but it may not. I've always been impressed actually with candidates who call back and check. You don't have to, nag the people or whatever, but you can send an email, like write down your interviewers' names, send an email, say thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. So that sort of keeps that person's mind, or that name, fresh in your mind, which can't hurt, because when future things come up, even if they don't get this position, you'll be like, well, that one candidate was really passionate and called or emailed or sent physical thank you notes are awesome and very impressive. Yeah.
I agree with what Susan said. Always correspondence, to say, hey, thank you so much for the opportunity to have this interview with you, and please know that I'm a positive person and really would like an opportunity to show you what I can offer to your organization. So that would be a great way, even if they are not hired, perhaps down the line, the opportunity may present itself to come into our organization.
And Zelquist mentioned this, with us, we will contact you either way, whether you get the position or you don't get the position. That's not the case everywhere. So with many jobs I'm sure we've all applied to, you apply and then you hear nothing, or you may apply and then interview and then hear nothing. Even for professional level jobs, people just don't always say thanks but no thanks. And I'm not sure why that's the way it is in the workplace culture, but it's really frustrating because you're sort of out on a limb and you have no idea what's going on. But at least in our case, we do reach out to people either way. But you should maybe ask in the interview, will I hear from you either way? That way you sort of know and you're not in limbo.
And then vice versa with the interviewee. If the interviewee hasn't heard back from the job that they applied for, reaching back, if they receive another job or another position somewhere, they should reach back out to those that they've interviewed with to let them know, well, I know that I did do an interview, especially like, I did an interview 2 days ago, but I received an offer today and I took the offer, so I would like to rescind, being considered for a particular position.
Right.
And so I think that would be good as well, because you never know if you ever have to go back to them.
Right.
Okay, thank you so much for being willing to take this time to answer these questions. Hopefully the answers you gave are going to be helpful for some of our patrons who are watching this video. That's our ultimate goal in all this, is to hopefully help our teens to find jobs and to be able to use that job to get that sweet, sweet money that they're all looking for so they can buy cool stuff. Thank you everyone for watching our video, and we hope you have a wonderful day.